So I'm out here visiting Northern California, and if you all hear some heavy rain and thunder in the background, I'm actually sitting here recording this video during a thunderstorm. Hope everyone is safe wherever you are and taking care of yourselves these days. I just got to thinking, as I watch the news every day, it really got me to thinking back on my childhood. Back when I was a kid, I was a history buff. I still am. And I had a special bond with my grandfather, who was a World War II veteran, and he and I were always talking politics, and we were always talking American history. And back when I was a kid, I remember he challenged me to learn all 40 presidents. He wanted to see if I could do it and memorize all 40 and say it without looking at the paper. And so I sat and worked really hard to learn all 40, and I would go from Washington all the way up to Reagan, and I would recite that for my grandpa, and I was, so proud to do it. And then he was like, okay, well, now that you've learned their names, can you figure out where they were from? Learn where each one of them was from. And he would make me go down the list, and I would do that. And I was always coming home from school and telling him what I'd learned in history class and having him, tell me what he knew about that subject. And so it was this bond and always this kind of like, I want to see if I can tell him something he hadn't heard about, like I can one-up him or I can impress him by learning something new. And so there was a lot of times growing up that I had some really good memories with him, talking about U.S. history. And if I could go back now and sit down on a park bench with him and have a conversation, there's a million questions I would love to ask this World War II veteran. And there's one question that went through my head. Back when I was growing up, I just never got around to asking him this, but I wish I could ask him now. The one question that went through my head so many times when I would study 1930s Germany is I would say to myself, how were they able to sell this to the people? How were they able to get people to vote for this? I know there were people that didn't agree with it. I know there were a whole lot of people who disagreed. But those people, didn't have the ability like we do now to build platforms. They didn't have a cell phone in their pocket. They couldn't let their voices be heard the way that we do. So, we'll never know in that scenario. We'll never know what those people really had to say about it. But I used to always wonder, how did it get sold to people? How did they roll with it? And how did they vote for it? And as I've lived through Donald Trump from the moment he come down the escalator, I've sat back and watched exactly how they did it. I've sat back and watched exactly how, and the way that it's been done in this political arena that is now a political theater. It's no longer, don't get me wrong, politics was always theater, but now we're to the point where it's just straight up the theatrics of it. And everybody got so caught up in their culture wars. Everybody got so caught up in feeling like they were important, feeling like they were fighting some battle that they could win and feel validated in doing so. I think a whole lot of people got caught up in Donald Trump because they realized that they could live vicariously through him. They could say he would say all the quiet parts out loud for them. He would make them feel empowered, and then they could sit back and fight these culture wars on his behalf and feel like they won something at the end of the day. And a lot of people have a really hard time facing up to uncomfortable truths. That's one of the things about if you study U.S. history that you have to come to grips with, especially if you grew up in the South like me. You have to come to a point where you realize that the rebel flag don't just mean Leonard Skinner and the Dukes of Hazzard. You have to have these moments where you face up to the uncomfortable truths. And that's something that a lot of people today aren't capable of doing. They want to whitewash it. They want to put it away. They want people to forget about it because they want to feel comfortable. So they go out there and everything that they see that makes them uncomfortable, they call it woke. And they sit and demonize that word, which was never a bad word and should have never been demonized. But they sit there and they made this word a bad word to the point that now if you speak out against racism, you speak out against bigotry, you speak out against homophobia, if you do all those things, well, you're just woke. In other words, you're just raining on my parade. Just let me be who I want to be. Trump let them be exactly who they wanted to be. And they got to live vicariously through the guy. And they got to vilify and demonize all the people that they hated. And they got to vilify and demonize all of the history and all of the uncomfortable truths that they didn't have the backbone to stand up against. If you go over to Twitter and just sit and scroll down it, look at that dumpster fire, look at what Elon Musk is pumping out there into the world. And then he tells people when he's standing there beside Trump and his son's trolling Trump, he tells people, yeah, the checks and balances, it's on my platform. That's where I post it. I post this stuff. I'm very transparent. I post this stuff for the world to see. And people buys it. Why? Because it tells them what they wanted to hear. And they sit back and they fall for some of the most ridiculous shit that I've ever seen. We had a guy who ran on the border. And he ran on a lot of fear, ran on a lot of propaganda. But he also ran on, like he likes to say, groceries. He liked to run on groceries. He was going to bring down the grocery prices. He was going to make everybody's life better. And I remember the night when we realized we were going to head into Trump 2.0, I seen people celebrating on Facebook and social media. Oh, here's to cheaper eggs. Here's to America I can afford to live in again. And they got none of those things. None. Instead, they got the Gulf of America. And then you got the Associated Press barred because they won't refer to it as the Gulf of America. And they're like, we're going to hold these people to account. We're going to make sure they say Gulf of America. We're not going to let them spread any fake news. We're not going to let them spread any lies and misinformation. And these are the same people that sit and spread countless lies and countless misinformation about the 2020 election, countless lies and misinformation about COVID and the vaccine. And whenever we tried to hold them to account, we got told that we were weaponizing the government against them. That's the world that we live in now. We live in a world where when I get stories sent to me, I look through them 5 or 6 times to make sure they're real because I can't believe it's the real world. I'm sitting here, I said to my buddy, I'm like, hey man, I'm going to be out in California and I'm going to be doing some things. So if you don't mind, send me some news stories as they happen, especially if something, happens that, you think it would be a good thing for me to talk about. Be sure to send it my way. And my buddy said, yeah, I got you, man. Don't worry. I'll send you some stuff. Well, then I sit there and I try to cipher through it. And I'm like, wait a minute, red, white, and blue land? Are you serious? Is this for real? This is what Trump supporters are going to get? Red, white, and blue land. It's like, and every day it's like, are we in the real world? Are we even there? But the people keep flexing. The people keep thinking they've won something. And they got nothing. Any election, I don't care. Look, I'll say it. Any election, whether it's Republican, Democrat, makes no difference. Every politician in my life made promises on the campaign trail that they weren't able to keep. And Democrats did too. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it was only Republicans that didn't keep promises. There was promises that Bill Clinton made that he wasn't able to fulfill. There was promises that Barack Obama made that he wasn't able to fulfill. And I realized it and went, hey, we didn't get that part that we wanted. That's always happened. Any president has ran and said, I'm going to create jobs and then failed to do so. Any president has said, hey, I'm going to push this plan through and then parts of it that we wanted didn't make it. And you just learn to live with it. You learn to roll with that. That's always been how politics has been. But this is unlike anything I have ever seen in my life because not only are these people not getting what they voted for, but they're having their intelligence insulted so blatantly. They're just being slapped in the face like this so blatantly that it's embarrassing for them. It's to the point now, and I thought it was embarrassing before all this started, the second go around, Trump 2.0. I thought January 6th was pretty damn humiliating. But here we are, watching them keep trying to go to bat for this guy over and over and over again. And at what point are they going to go, you know what? I didn't vote for red, white, and blue land. I didn't vote for the Gulf of America. I didn't vote for Canada being the 51st state. When are they ever going to wake up and realize that? But when I think back on my childhood, and if I was sitting next to my grandpa, and I could say, Pap, how did they do it? I believe he would say, this is exactly how they did it. This is exactly how they paved the way for such insanity. Because they got people to believe in they were part of the fight. They got people to believe in that they were in on it too, and somehow they were making a difference, and they weren't. Now it's such uncertain times we're living in, and I talk to my friends, and some of my friends are hopeful that we could turn this around and we can start making progress, and other friends are like, there's no hope left, and I'm somewhere in the middle, of sometimes feeling as though there's no hope left, but then I say to myself, no. We have to keep fighting, and we have to keep standing strong, and we have to keep calling this out, and it'll get tiresome, and it'll get crazy, and you'll think you're writing some sort of satirical skit for, Bob and David, but no, it's the real world. This is where we're at. This is the real world now. But I have never in my life seen a group of voters not only not get what they voted for, but just get slapped around and humiliated, and yet they still stand there. But I think I can answer my own question. This is how they did it. They did it by normalizing insanity to the point that no one could tell the difference anymore. So we'll keep moving. We'll keep putting in the work. We'll keep pushing forward. We'll still stand on our principles. We'll still stand on the morals and the values that we have, and we'll realize that everything the Republican Party ever said was a lie. Go ahead and forget that. You don't have to worry about them ever giving you a lecture on morals and values again. They threw it out the window. You don't ever have to worry about them giving you a lecture on patriotism again. That's dead and gone. Their loyalty's only to Donald Trump. You never have to worry about them being the rule of law party. They can't say that anymore. All their arguments are gone. Now it's just up to us to pick up the pieces and try to put it back together the best we can.